Welcome to another episode of the Natanya Experience. Today we have a very special guest, my dear childhood friend, Marklyn Johnson. Marklyn is quite a character and has come to have a journey that really involves a whole bunch of different stuff. And like me, he worked in the corporate world and just realized he wasn't quite a fit in the IT space and has blossomed into a author, successful author, multiple author, podcast host, and lecturer, and really advocate for laughter as the medicine to heal us and unite us all. Marklyn talks about race, gender, class, all kinds of controversial topics, and has podcasts called Self-Help for Assholes. He is a published author of one of his books titled Confessions of a Shit Talker. He's also a local celebrity and often MCs a lot of the town events and neighboring town events. He is a stand-up comic, regularly seen in New York City on the stages, and my very good friend. So welcome, Marklyn Johnson. Hi there, and welcome to another Natanya Experience. My guest today is very special to me for a number of reasons. He is a childhood friend. His name is Marklyn Mr. Direct Johnson. He is a multi-talented individual, comedian, author, podcaster, and entrepreneur with a passion for engaging audiences through humor, insight, and raw honesty. So he's been doing stand-up comedy for almost a decade, and he's been featured in notable acts like Mike Marino and produced and hosted many shows. So beyond the stage, he's built a brand around his straight talk persona, Mr. Direct. And this extends to his podcasting ventures such as Self-Help for Assholes and Mr. Direct's Sunday Coffee and Mr. Direct's Comic Conversations. He's also an author, and he's penned 3 thought-provoking books. One is Lessons from a Shit Talker, Facebook Conversations, the good, the funny, the ugly, and I Like Black People, the good ones, an observation from experience. So with that, welcome, Marklyn.
What up? What up? What up? What up? What up, Natanya? How you doing?
I'm doing really well. I can't believe it's taken us a few months to get together and do this, but luckily I've gotten to see you socially, otherwise, and performing
That's
wise.
also because you're a superstar. You don't have time for little people like me.
This is recorded. So this is the problem when you have a friend. He's going to give me crap the whole time. Okay.
No, it's because you should have known what you were gonna get into when you decided to book a comic. That's what I do. I have jokes all day long.
I know, and it's good, and I want you to be here. And I think, and I will say one serious thing now, that what you do and what you're trying to project, especially with all the work that you're doing, is really important. And what it didn't say in the bio as well is, the speaking engagements that you do with young people in schools and that kind of thing. So I think there's some real things I'd love for people to know about you. And then also we can break down some of the silly stuff too, if you're up for that.
100%. It's all when you talk about people who do entertainment, what a lot of people don't know is that a lot of people are not just entertainers, they're artists, and artists are multifaceted. And what we've come as a society is we try to make artists monolithic. So if you meet an artist and he's a great actor, you just want him to be an actor. You don't realize he was probably an exceptional musician, but he broke off as an artist first, as an actor or actress first before the whole musician thing. But you cannot escape what originally called you because that's your passion.
Absolutely. And so what I wanted to talk about first was all the good, juicy stuff. So like what you're doing now that you're excited about, what you're working on, what you want people to know about. And let's start there and start on a high note until we dip into the struggle.
Well, in all honesty, the what I'm working on now is I just had a conversation with someone, and it looks like I might be performing a show locally if everything goes well. So I have to tighten up my set because I'll be performing in front of locals, like town people.
So you're not going to lift your shirt up again?
Oh, I might do that because I think it's funny. I think, but even that joke needs to be tightened up just a little bit. But I'm working on that. I presently have been I've actually been fortunate the last To so mid-August. Yeah, I would probably say August, most of August except for 1 week. I've basically been performing at a Broadway Comedy Club, the midnight show, either Friday or Saturday, and sometimes both nights. And I consider it a blessing. When I started this, I did it just I didn't really know what I was doing when I started doing comedy. I started doing podcasting because I always wanted my own radio show. I always wanted my own radio show. And I said, well, podcasting before it became popular was an easy way for me to do it. And that evolved into me doing video podcasting. And that evolved into me to hosting. And then that evolved into me doing stand up, and that evolved into me writing the books. And it's all an evolution. And I think a lot of people don't understand that. They don't get it because most, I would say 98, yeah, 98, 99% of people, they follow what they were told to do according to the, when they say follow the fray or follow the pack, most people don't know how to step outside the pack and do what they want. And when they see people not following the pack, they ostracize them. They don't get it.
It's funny you say that. We actually did an interview earlier with a young man who is a rapper and had quite early success in incredible collaborations with like Run DMC, and it was amazing. But he basically talked also about he was quite young, like middle school, and that he had kind of no friends because he was different and he was doing this stuff and performing and getting teased and kind of, yeah, exactly that. And or that people were maybe, or they were envious. There's like a lot of layers and a lot of reason, especially when you're really young and figuring out who you are. But even as adults, or they don't understand. I mean, I think it's more common now and definitely since COVID, right? For people not necessarily to only see, let's say, the 9 to 5 corporate job as a job, and then the trades, and then the arts, and then like that was it. And if you're not in one of those categories, then they don't understand. Or maybe there's a little jealousy because they're stuck in their box and you're not.
Well, I could say this, and this is personally. I've always been a little bit of a pain in the ass. I've always been
No.
outspoken. I've always been outspoken. I've always, did things a little bit different. And I will never say I was bullied. I was never bullied. I just didn't get along with people because I didn't really know how to fit in, because I didn't fit in. I wasn't better. I wasn't worse. There are people that are floating around this world as kids, as adults, older. They just don't know how to fit in. And I say this one thing all the time: get in where you fit in. And that enabled me to have people from various backgrounds as friends, women, gay people, trans people, anybody who didn't fit in. You found, what I love about comedy is we're all a bunch of misfits who didn't fit in life. At some very few times do you hear from a comic that I was the most popular person in school. You hear that very few. Most comedians were a little on the outside looking in. And as I got older, I tried the 9 to 5, and it just, now this one's going to throw a lot of people off, but it's the truth. I never felt appreciated as a black man in corporate America. And for some people, they could say, I don't know what you mean. That's fine. But I personally didn't. I didn't see a way of me expressing myself. I didn't see the four walls of a cubicle as a key to my success. And I still don't. And it's hard. And it's just a life that we live.
Yeah. I mean, I think the people that are in the circles that we both travel in, even though they're different, but they're, interdependent, concentric, would actually understand that. That's, why we're trying to do some of the things we're trying to do. But yeah, you couldn't be your truest self for a number of reasons. And the fact that you were brave enough to kind of try something different and do all these things is pretty incredible and pretty awesome. But I know it hasn't been necessarily overnight, and you are hustling. You're always hustling. I mean, in that way, we're pretty alike, which is cool because you get my life and I get your life a little bit. Not maybe all the details of it, but that it really is a lot of feast and famine, and it is a lot of um, anticipation, waiting, and sometimes let down. Is a lot of false promise. It's difficult because it doesn't have structure around it until such time when you're really in a commercial place where you're maybe having other people manage that part for you.
There's a saying in sales, you got to knock on 1,000 doors before you get the one yes. 1,000 no's to one yes. Every person that you see that's very successful in entertainment or as an artist has knocked on 1,000,000 doors. The average person. For me, I one thing I like to get across to people is I've always just wanted to be my natural self. I never liked, you know, when people are not being genuine with you. I never wanted to be a disingenuous person. I've always wanted to be like me or love me, but this is who you get. And I'm a human being. I'm evolving. So who I am today is not who I'm going to be tomorrow. Who I'm going to be tomorrow is not who I'm going to be next week. We're human beings. We evolve. And I think a lot of people are scared to live in that skin. And for me, growing up where we grew up and seeing so many people being so phony irritated me versus inspiring me. And I don't like it. And what I love about comedy has given me way to just be my authentic self. And my authentic self is complicated, confusing, demanding. It can be a lot. And it's, you know, you encounter people who they don't get it because they'll never get it because you don't think like everyone else thinks. You don't move like everyone else moves. You don't want the same things. You know, I told a friend of mine the other day, I just said it today, as a matter of fact, I will take a bad day on stage in front of 1,000 people versus a great day in corporate America with a simple email. Hey, you did good on that call. Just nothing.
Yeah, yeah, and I think I would love to talk about that turning point for you when you were like, "Okay, I really can't do this anymore," and sort of how like, who you spoke to about it. I don't know if you wanna get into, you know, because 'cause
So
you've had some loss and that kinda stuff in terms of, like, who's in your corner and not, and what that's been like for you. But it would be interesting, I think, for people because we are you know, my platform is about mental health, and we're trying to talk about shit. Oh, I said shit.
who cares? Stop. You listen. Okay, so if we're having a real conversation, being able to swear sometimes is not a bad thing. It's letting out something in a natural form. And this is one of the things, the reasons why I said I love comedy, because they're even trying to curb the humor of comedy. Some people's comedy is very clean because that's the voice they have every day. I'm more of a blue comic. The shits, the dams, the F bombs, the MF bombs, the every other bastard bombs, they all fly out of my mouth naturally because you and I have spoken. If I'm emotional and I'm impactful, that's how I speak. And it's not, I want to be, listen, people who are being honest with you, generally speaking, have the dirtiest mouths in the world. And when it comes to a trust factor, if you had a salesman saying, this car is an effing piece of crap, right? But full words. And then you had the other salesman saying, oh, this car has its problems, but hey, listen, if you want to buy it, it's a great purchase. Who would you believe more? The person
Right.
that's swearing. Because to you, your brain would translate, they're just being so authentic. That's what I love about being from Jersey. That's how we are with each other. So, with that being the case, to answer your question, I didn't mean to go on a tangent. I'm sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. I love it.
Okay, so two things. One, I've been fired from every corporate job I've ever had. I should have known the second time I got fired from a job that I'm not a corporate person. But when you don't know where to go and it's just like get a job and because everybody else has got a job.
And you came from, you know, upper middle class
Yeah.
yuppie suburban neighbor. Like, let's give the context of like that. We all, I mean, that's why I did a corporate. Like,
My,
we all thought that that's what we were supposed to do. So we did
yes.
it.
100%. And that's what you saw your friends doing, getting an education, getting a job. And it's like, that's what you have to do. You have to get a job, 9 to 5, pop out some kids, have the white picket fence. That's what we grew up around here. And what happened, so you got to give me a chance to explain it to you in succession. Every job I've always been fired from. My last job in my second to last job in corporate America, I was working at United Health Group and I was working on a service desk. And my dad had called me a week before and he's like, when are you coming home? And you kind of hear the tears, but he was kind of being, and I was like, Dad, I got a job here. I don't know when I'm going to come home. It is what it is. And then all of a sudden, I went into work one day and little things started happening, like little things. And I just got so frustrated with the things that were happening that I just care. I didn't care. They call it quiet quitting. It was a loud fire. Like I got escorted out of the building. And okay. So when that happened, I said, Dad, I'll be home it was March of 2014. Dad, I got to wait until my lease expires. I will move back to New Jersey. When I moved back to New Jersey, I said, I will not work another corporate job. That being the case, I was home in June 28th, about that. My dad passed away October of 2014, unfortunately. At that point, I went to the Connecticut School of Broadcasting and I said, I'm going to do everything in my power to get a job working in radio. And in August of 2015, I got offered a job at New Jersey 101.5, street team stuff. And I loved it. I was driving the New Jersey 101.5 truck. I was doing street stuff. I was doing my podcast stuff. And I really loved it. And I was doing comedy here and there, but not a lot. Finally, I ran into a gentleman that we went to school with, Dan Catullo. And Dan said, I love what you do. You speak your mind. You say what you say. And let me put this in full context for people. America does not like black men who do not speak certain voices. They want to give you the voice. They don't want you to have your own voice. Same thing for women. When a woman speaks a certain way, we don't want you to speak that way. We want a way for you to speak. So as a black man, my voice was it had become, because of Obama and everything, very pro-black, very, let's discuss racism. Let's keep it truthful. With that being the case, I had to be me. I worked for Dan for a while, and then his production company unfortunately folded when COVID happened. When COVID happened, it was hard for me to get into the production world working. So I ended up working at a remote tech support company, where I was given a company car, company credit card, and traveling around and repairing computers. I worked there from August of 2020 until December of 2021. Again, I was fired. Something happened. It is what it is. At that point, I said, I will never walk through the doors of a corporate company again unless they're paying me for speaking or for comedy. Why? I've always known I shouldn't have been in corporate. I didn't know what talents I had until COVID hit and I started doing things on my own and started realizing I could do something with this. The problem for me personally, it's not the laziness, it's when you're a creative mind, your brain is moving 300 miles per hour compared to the person that says, I'm going to wake up at 9 o'clock. I'm going to go to work. I'm going to come home at 5 o'clock and I'm going to rinse and repeat to the next day. When you don't think that way, your brain is, where should I go? Where should I go? Where should I go? From that point,
or every place looks good.
Yes.
And then like, where do I put my stuff?
Yes.
And then you don't want to put too much in one because you're like, wait, but this could be,
because you still need money. Money. And let me tell you, it hasn't been easy. I've had to borrow money from friends. I was broke for a while. I'm still broke. I had to become a substitute teacher. Um, you've got to grind it out. And I mean, during that time, since COVID hit, in the last 4 years, I released 3 books. I didn't realize I was a writer to some degree until a friend of mine looked at some notes I wrote and they said, "You write on Facebook every day." And I'm like, "But that's just Facebook." And then I went back and looked at all the stuff I wrote. And a friend of mine said to me, a woman from town said, "Marklyn, I see the stuff that you write online and you have an impact. Like people respond to
That's what I was gonna say, and there's a response,
it.
and
Like
there's a
people,
and there's a visceral, like, not just there's like, you inspire people, you enrage people, and
yes,
I mean that respectfully, I love you, so it's cool, right? But you get a real response, like,
yes,
and that's what art does, it's
yes.
the way
And
you
it
put
was the
things.
authenticity. And the authenticity came from, and in the first book I wrote, shameless plug, lessons from a shit talker, shameless plug. In the first book I wrote, and it's funny, nobody ever picks up on it. I wrote in one of the chapters in a quick line, I realized if I share my truth, I would piss a whole lot of people off because unfortunately, people have a concept of America and how they think women, how they think white women, how they think Jewish people, how they think Muslim people, how they think black people, how they believe everyone experiences this country. And they don't want to accept the fact that we don't all experience this country differently. I'll never forget a girl that was Italian, a woman that was Italian, and said, "Oh, you think it's so tough being black? Imagine having a vowel at the end of your name." And I was like, "You have no clue. Like, no one knows who you are until you tell them." I walk into a room and I change the environment just by walking in. And then when I speak, they're expecting one voice and they get another. And then because the voice that they're getting is, "Holy crap, this guy's kind of intelligent," not even kind of, highly intelligent. Now it's kind of put them on their heels because they're not sure how to address me. And knowing I had that impact, I said, people need to really think about the way they speak in general, which came to the second book. I'm not going to do the shameless plug again that I wrote, Facebook Conversations, because nobody believed the conversations I was having on Facebook. Nobody believed it. And then I released a book, and then people were like, "Oh my God, people really did speak like that." And I said, "Of course," because like you said, some people would like it, and some people would have such a nasty reply. And you still see it today. Every now and then I'll post something and it's, "Oh, they want to put you in a box, so they got reason to be angry because they can't think outside of their box."
Yeah, yeah, and I think there's a lot in what you said, but there's a lot of things I was like, "Which thing do I pick to go from?" I think that's another kind of quiet beauty, if I could say that, since it's not quiet, it's a joke almost, in the idea of the juxtaposition of what you're doing that's, like, mission oriented, right, in terms of laughter and healing us and bridging us as a nation of different,
Yes.
um, and using humor to kind of break the tension, right? So you'll talk about something even in your show, right? And you will have, some scathing, I think I can't help but think of, Chappelle and some of the other great comics who find ways to put in a perspective that some people might not even realize they're taking it
I
in. And
it's
I
I
think
like
that's a
that you said
very
that.
powerful.
I like
Yeah.
that you said that. One of the jokes that I tell now, and please excuse the crassness of it, but I say how I go, "It's amazing how many white people say to me, 'Well, you're black, but you're not really black.'" And the punchline is, "Well, she could have waited till I got out the bedroom." You know, like, don't just chuck me away. Like, you could have waited until whatever. Now, that's just used as an extreme punchline to get people to laugh. But the reality is, I've had many people say that in casual conversation. Oh, well,
Yeah,
you know what I
and
mean.
the Carlton comments, and I mean, obviously, I know
Yes,
you and we live
it's
in the world, but and it's listen, I didn't know we were gonna totally go here, but it's hard because I look like this in this container sometimes,
yes.
and to be sometimes wanting to be like, "But it doesn't matter," but I know it matters. I'm not stupid, and I'm not that, ignorant. I'm trying to, learn and grow and be in solidarity, but sometimes it's so painful. And just like you said, whether it's, when it's someone's way they worship or the way they love, it's not literally the first thing you see and experience. When it's your skin color or your potentially a gender representation, that's the first thing. So whether it's conscious or not, there's going to be some bias and some judgment. And
And that's
let's
one
just
of the
be
things I
honest
discuss.
about it. Let's just be honest about it. Let's grow from it. Let's think about, are you making a decision differently? Are you, and learn from it, because the other thing is, like, at the end of the day, you cut my arm, you cut your arm, you cut our Ryan's arm, we're all going to bleed red. But that's very kumbaya. But in some ways, I feel like, shouldn't that be the point? And yet some people are still stuck. And I think the other thing that we have experienced together, like through, especially since you shared about your career trajectory, our nation's political climate you talked about, but also the economics of it all, so that we have people, at least the feeling of grasping for the same few things, right? So
Yes.
when they feel that there is scarcity, they lash out. Well, you're different. This is mine. And I feel like that's, and only because some of the social media stuff I saw until I actually left Facebook, I was like, I can't. And it was, during the election time, and I would see what people were saying to you. I remember I personally, like, wrote at one point, like, I didn't comment, and then I was like, "This is my friend." Like, we all, like, it was. You remember a bunch of us? I think it was mostly women. Were like, because all these guys were like threatened by, and a lot of what you were doing was asking questions, right? Like, you
Uh,
were asking, "Help me understand, why is this?" And then it would be like attacking you. And then also saying you hate white people. And I'm like, most of his friends are Caucasian. Look where we grew up, like,
which is hilarious on its face. I tell people all the time, if I'm a racist black guy, I've done a poor job of it, because most of the people I'm around 98% of the time are white. And that's not that I don't like my own people. It's just who I am. It's what
and
I
where
vote
and where you came, and then you were in IT, and
for.
then it's
Yes.
just like, it
I
just where
work
the
I worked
circle
in
you're
corporate
in.
America, and it became a get in where you fit in. A funny story. I just shared this the other day. I shared it on Facebook, which is hilarious. A My friend's kid, who I consider this guy like a brother, and he's a 13-year-old white kid. He comes up to me, just literally like ran up to me at our town Italian festival. Comes
Oh,
up,
last weekend in Labor Day.
yes, gives me the biggest hug. He's like, "Hey, Uncle Marklyn." And some people were like, "What the?" And I'm like, "This is my nephew, you know?" And, I reach in my pocket. I'm like, "You okay? You need anything?" He's like, "No, I'm fine." Every time I see him, I gave him $50. like he's my flesh and blood. Like, "Hey, dude, here's $50." Now I'm broke, so I needed that 50. But that's my guy, that's my guy. I gave him the $50, and I'm like, "Dude, I'll see you later. Tell your dad I said hello." Sent the picture to his dad. His dad loved it. And he goes, "That kid loves you." And I don't care. But just because I don't care doesn't mean I can't talk about being black in the experience, you know? And not to make it political, but when I tell people I can't vote, you can say whatever you want. I will not vote for someone who sits with racists. Like that to me tells, like, if you can look at me and tell me I should vote for a guy who you could see people walking with Confederate flags and and other "I hate everyone that ain't white" flags along with this candidate's flag, and tell me I'm supposed to vote for the best of the country and forget that they're saying he speaks for them, then you're telling me I'm stupid. And here's the worst part: it's some of our ex-teachers. Like,
Yeah. So we should probably shift from that, but it's it was definitely eye-opening on a number of levels for many, many people
Yes,
that
mentally draining. I will tell you this. So, because you talk
yeah.
about mental health, that's when I realized I really need to move and shift,
Mhm.
because I realized how it impacted me mentally and how
You
it.
can't be the singular crusader for common sense. You can't be the singular
Yes.
crusader for these things are okay and these things are not okay for human beings.
I want people to laugh, but I want people to think. And it's a skill to be able to get you to laugh and to think at the same time, because sometimes people think that, oh, the laughter is a throwaway. Just throw it away. Um, that being the case, the struggle is mentally draining. So just
Yeah.
to
So I
shift
did
gears
wanna
for
talk
you.
about that a little bit before we, like, run out of time because I think this was off the air, I'm sorry, like, when we were talking before, maybe it was with Ryan, I don't know, but I feel like we were talking about, like, tonight, or maybe I was saying this to Ryan about you, forgive me, that you project generally, like, when you're out and about, because I get to see you, man of the town, our local celebrity, as well as, performing and just socially together when we're out at a party or friends or you come over or whatever, you project very, very positive big energy, but it's very warm and loving even when you're cursing and messing around, right? That's it. So that's unusual and unusual for all the things that you experience and think and feel. And so I wanted to ask you a little bit about how do you carry yourself in that way with that? And do you and if you're okay talking about this, and do you privately, have to shift from that? Like, do you, or is that just, does it come naturally when you're in a good mood or you're feeling like you're in a good place with good people? That is how it is. Because I just, you go pound the pavement, you do, but, back to back, night after night of these shows. And it's kind of not just the physical energy, but the emotional energy to put yourself out there for people. And I just was wondering if you could talk about what that's like and how you do it.
It's I love doing stand up. A friend of mine just posted an article, not an article, about a conversation of an article she had the other day, where a comic said they did 1,500 straight days of comedy. So you do the math, 1,500 straight days. So it doesn't mean they did a show every day. They did an open mic or a show. I do an open mic or a show right now 5 or 6 times a day. Not a day, sorry, a week. But when I do it, I do 3 or 4 a day. So I get this rhythm of, I get the laugh. And I've noticed myself now just constantly laughing about everything, and not in a mocking tone, but in a very like playful, life is way too serious that people just don't laugh more. And I laugh. I laugh at myself. I laugh at others. I laugh. I I I grieve and I hurt inside, and my laughter is my way of letting out. And I don't do the fake laughter. I do real laughter. I don't
I know.
I don't I don't do the no, I let out real laughter, because if God called me home today, there's not a person alive that wouldn't say he passed away doing what he loved, because I love what I do. You can't put a price on that. That's how I'm able to handle things mentally, because I love what I do. I love going on stage. And if, let me tell you, 800 people and only 3 people laugh. I made 3 people laugh. I won.
Yeah, I don't know. I can't imagine that being real though, but I guess it happens sometimes. But I've seen you in action and it's magnetic, it's electric, and I'm so proud. And I can't sometimes not remember when you were younger and how you would walk up to the bus Can I say this? I
You can
mean,
say whatever you want.
you would walk because he came from behind the house, my house. He lived in the street behind, and he would just like strutting with your tall socks and your skinny legs, and you would like it was early in the morning, and you'd be like, "Yay!" Like and everybody else, and it was all those little girls in our little backpacks and everything. We'd be like, "Oh, Marklyn's here! It's chaos!" And it was exciting. It was exciting. And that was when we were teenagers, right? So the high school, and you were so full of energy and vibrancy, and you were cracking shit on anybody. I don't care if they were the football team person or the band team and I mean, that's when I fell in love. I mean, you know what I mean, like with you as a human being. And right, I was like, I love this person you had, especially like this is a time when it wasn't now. I mean, first of all, we had a lot more rigorous boundaries around who's cool and who's not cool, and what you
Yep.
say and what you don't say. Race being one of them, but also socioeconomic, like class,
Oh,
and
100%.
they had that, and I was on this side of the road and on that side of the road, and so like we didn't care about that, and you know that, and you know my family, but the schools, like in the school, that was the environment, in the culture, that was the environment, and you know that I'm sure, like you said, you weren't like really bullied, and somehow maybe nobody wanted to deal with bullying you. That's amazing. You found a way to be Teflon.
No,
But
you know what it was? It was, listen, I didn't get bullied. Guys wanted to beat me up because I had a smart mouth. And I had a smart mouth just because it's like, really, you going to try and talk crap to me? Like, oh, you scared of me because I could talk back to you and
yeah, they
like,
couldn't answer, so they would just walk away, or they pretend they didn't
and it's
care. But I
kids. It's
see.
what do kids do? Kids are like, I can't beat you verbally, so I'm going to try and beat you up. You know what I mean? Or I don't like the fact that this guy just walks around like nonchalant. And it got to a point for some people, it was like, why are you trying to beat up somebody who basically you know is not going to fight? Like that's a sign of a character of a person who doesn't really have much going up. You know the guy's not going to fight. Like I couldn't fight. I couldn't. You listen. The only thing I could do was talk. Couldn't fight a lick. Nobody. So it is what it is. I don't. I think part of the joy I found, and I will say, I as I used to watch TV. I used to watch like hosts, people that would host shows, and they always were just joyful and they were always happy. And, maybe secretly inside of my brain, I always wanted to be a host. And I don't think I was mimicking them versus it was, listen, we all have our days. And I tell people all the time, leave me alone, get away from me. Like when I don't want to be bothered, I don't want to be bothered. Like I'm not in the mood. I don't want to be talked to. I don't want to let me be what I be at this point. But for the most part, because I love what I do, but that's also, I deal with whatever frustration is at that point and I don't let it bottle up because I cannot go on stage angry.
Yeah,
I can't I can't
and
do any,
everyone that will come out.
it'll it'll either come out hilarious, which let me tell you, angry black man on stage is funny. It doesn't sound like it is, but coming from me, because my whole presence is so non-threatening that when you hear me do it, it's just I gotta laugh at this goofiness because there's no way it's real. And I love that. I love being able to just embrace what I'm experiencing. If I didn't, I tell people this, if I was working in corporate America, you'd probably see me in a 6 o'clock news for doing something stupid because there was no joy. Part of the mental problems, that the mental health issues that we have, is that people don't find joy in their life every day.
Yeah, and or right with that, then they're who they are doesn't have right. So you're right. So that's the combination of what was so special about you from an early age. And I'm going to be honest, like especially with the boys, like you had your personality was present. You weren't trying to just be a sports star or an academic star or a band star or something like that, right? You weren't defined by any one little box, and you weren't letting anyone else define you. And I think it's sometimes, most often takes people a little while to find that. And for some people, it was COVID. I mean, even for me, I was like not in any one group, but didn't feel comfortable in any one place. And even now, I'm like, oh, it's so great that being weird is cool now. It's only took midlife.
Hey, I didn't discover anything about me until I was 35 years old, and it's a journey. It
Yeah.
really is.
And
It's a journey.
the younger generations are just so differently wired and differently culturally oriented because we were much I mean, I feel like Gen X was, like, on the cusp of the end of, like, keep it to yourself. So, don't express. I mean, even for girls. I mean, even when I did sports, remember there was no girls' soccer team. I was on the boys' soccer team until high school, right? And right at that time. And, you fall down, you get up, and the concussions, fine. Can you blink? Like, it was a different way, right? I mean,
Blink,
I literally
blink
woke
one
up with
time. Blink one
head
time.
injury, like real brain injury later in life that we realized because of those kinds of things that we weren't necessarily now we probably now they over coddle the kids, but what I mean is what that does is that keeps a lot of stuff bottled in. It keeps a lot of good things and bad things. And
If I was younger now, my parents would have probably put me in a arts program somewhere. They would have figured it out. Like because of all the information we have and the access we have
exactly.
to
Think about
information.
learning disabilities.
Yeah.
It's so funny you write your Y's backwards. We're like, oh, is that later? You're like, oh my God, it's dyslexia. Like, no
Yeah.
wonder, that kind of
Here's the thing. Here's something that a lot of people will never understand, especially when they're dealing with people that are highly intelligent. It's not that they're on the spectrum or that they're savants. A lot of people that are of high intelligence, their brain cannot wrap around one concept. You can tell them to try, but most of the time, artists that function on a high level, their brain is so, and as a kid, you don't know what to deal with all these thoughts, all these things that are going on. And your parents, old school, because we're Gen X, you better figure out something to focus on and get it right. Boom. Because this is what they wanted you to do. They wanted you to be the horse with blinders and figure it out. Are you good at math? Are you good at English? Figure out one of these that you're good at, because that's what you're going to be for the rest of your life. But if you're high functioning and you're, super smart, your brain's like, I can do anything, but not one thing can hold my attention but for so long.
or you can functionally do it, but you slowly die inside. And then you have this schism, right? And then you might have anger within yourself, right? Anger out, whatever that is, but it might not even be conscious because you're functioning like a regular person. And that's what I think, and I hope like other people take away from a lot of like what you do and what you show them, that like you don't have to be in a box. And I think I'm kind of sometimes I admire and envy some of the younger generations. Most people just trash the young people. Oh, this work ethic, and oh, they all have all these identities, and right, there's some of that, sure, but think about like I talk to teenagers who are bright and can articulate for themselves things about themselves that we just did not even think about. And I think a lot of that is because the world is in their hand. And, if
Yes.
you wanted to know what was happening in the world, you had to either get a newspaper or when you were at college, maybe you could get other books that were about all these topics, unless you had like the Funk and Wagnalls or the whatever encyclopedias to like, and whatever year that was updated, that's all the news you had. And we were sort of sheltered in the possibility of what it could be. And now because of Twitch and streaming and everything, everyone wants that. Everyone wants it. And then they have a false sense of how easy it is. And I think our Gen X is like really on the cusp. And I say that I think that's why we're so different, because we had a whole childhood without tech, but we are young enough that we adopted tech as soon as it came. We were the first
But you
adopter.
know what the problem is with that? Even though we adopted tech, we still didn't assimilate fully into the tech world for a lot of us, because our brain, a lot of us, and I would say probably 60% of us, if we didn't have a job that really needed tech, our brains didn't want to adjust other than it's just something else to have or to do. only 40% of us needed tech for a job. Like we needed to be on a computer. We needed to do the functions on a computer. So we resisted. The next generation underneath of us, the millennials, computers were involved with them the minute they hit high school. They had cell phones. Cell phones became intelligent. Then they moved from there to we didn't have internet until we were in our 20s.
No, I had internet in college. What are you talking about?
In our 20s.
Dial up. No, but we had dial up at home before that, before college. But
Oh,
we
you
were
must
also
you
and also I was also my mom worked in telecom, so that's true. Yeah.
see.
But I do remember having a computer at college, my own computer, and not everyone had a computer.
But do you
And
see
it
what
was
I'm
like
saying?
a good school.
You
Yeah.
you were like 1% of the 1% that
And
like
I was into tech. I was always into like
yeah.
hacking and whatever.
So if you
But
didn't grow up in that, if you didn't grow up in that,
yeah,
you
yeah.
didn't understand that, right? My dad bought me an IBM PC2 where you had to load DOS. And I had to learn to do little things on it and whatever. And I fully, like again, it's you incorporate yourself into learning about computers. And I was fortunate enough to get a computer. And then I got another computer later on because that computer became outdated. And guess what? You needed to buy programs to get it to work. And my
Yeah.
parents were like, I got you a computer, but I ain't buying no damn programs to make it work, which was, like, it was like having Atari on an advanced level. You need to buy the programs to make it work. You know what I
Right.
mean? That said, I love the fact that these kids grow up with technology, but the technology has also made them lazy. You know what
And
I mean?
and less interacting with other human beings. So we're gonna probably need to wind down, and I want to kind of round out with like, so your audiences for are different in your different endeavors, right? So when you speak at schools and then you do your show. And so I'm just curious about, how do you speak differently to those different audiences, and what do you think they need differently from you?
When I'm doing comedy, because I do blue comedy and I swear, it's different because I'm up there and my gimmick at that point is you're here to laugh with me. That's what the job is. When I'm performing at a comedy shop or club or whatever, my focus is not to necessarily deliver a message, even if there's a message there. It's more so just to make you laugh. Laugh at my pain, laugh at my weird way of looking at life, laugh at the crazy observations I make, things of that nature. When I go to speak, so like last year, I got to greet the teachers in South Jersey. It was about letting them know that they're superheroes and understanding that they are appreciated. Teachers are the first hero. When a teacher walks into a bagel shop and a student recognizes them and they're like, "Oh my god," like that's Mrs. Jenkins and blah blah blah. I just had it happen to me at the Quick Check on Terrell Road. I saw a young lady and I was like, "Are you behaving this year?" That's all I said. And then I went around to pay for my coffee, and she comes up to me. She goes, "Are you going to be my substitute again?" And I'm like, "I don't know. You didn't like me last year," joking. And she goes, "Oh my God, no, I loved you." You don't realize the impact of teachers. So that was the message that I delivered them. I'm usually delivering a message with a sense of humor, but it's a different way of delivering it. I'm not swearing. I'm not trying. I'm giving them a truthful conversation, but it's more so about delivering a message that they need to hear. And it's a different method of speaking because I'm still engaging, but the way of engaging now is I want you to understand I understand your story, but here's a part about your story that you don't understand and how it affects everyone around you.
That's amazing. Well, I obviously can talk to you forever. I thank you for finally that we got to sit down. Next time I'm inviting myself into your studio because I want to talk about self-help for assholes too. And I saw a couple of things. I was like, "Oh my. I love that interplay between the two of you too."
It's
That's
it's
pretty.
it's it, so we shared that in one group, and one of some lady, some stranger said to her, I just can't listen to your podcast because of the title. And it's like, so what you're saying is you don't care about the substance, it's the title. And the show itself, if anyone takes a
It
listen,
has asterisks over the, so you
yeah,
could just say for a-holes.
well, listen, forget the title. There's substance there. My co-host is a life coach. She's a yogi. She helps people deal with trauma and healing. And I'm the humor, not only because I know how to produce it and she couldn't if she tried, but I'm the humor. I'm the one that's lighting it up a little bit because you need a little bit of levity to sometimes get these things across to people. You need to be able to laugh at your situation. You know, death is a hard thing, but you got to find humor in it.
Well, I thank you for everything that you're doing. I'm really excited. I can't wait to, well, see you whether personally or professionally again soon. I thank Ryan, my knight in shining armor, for always all through the night because it was very late, helping us get these shows out. And do you want to just say where people should find you and connect with you?
Ooh, if you go to Apple Podcasts, you can find every podcast I've done. Mr. Direct's Sunday Coffee, Self-Help for Assholes, as well as Mr. Direct's Comic Conversations. If you go to Amazon, you can find all books. The easiest way is to type in Marklyn, Marklyn, T, middle initial, and Johnson, Johnsson. You type that in, all three of my books will appear. Buy a copy. I can almost guarantee you will enjoy one of them. My favorite is the latest that I released, which I love, and sometimes I get stuck on a title, but I'm not. It's I Like Black People, the Good Ones, an observation from experience. The reason why you're going to love it, at the end of every chapter, there's reflection questions. So you learn a little bit, you hear a little bit, and most of all, you get to reflect on what you just read as well. Coming soon. Well, if you go to mrdirectscomedy.com, you will find me. You will be able to see some of my comedy stuff. And you could also go to marklynspeaks.com, and that shows you all my public speaking stuff. Yes, I'm a man that wears many hats, but the best hat I've ever worn is to be a friend to Natanya. I knew that would make you blush.
All right. Good night, everybody. At the Natanya Experience, we believe we can all rise above challenges, heal, and shine together. And so we give big thanks to our amazing partners who share our vision of universal health and happiness.